Hey there, it's Steve from Serious Keto, and in this episode of the Not So Serious Keto video podcast, I will be doing a review of these two books, Lies I Taught in Medical School and Lies Your Doctor Told You. So let me start by saying I really liked both of these books. I'm glad I read them, and my goal here in this review is to kind of give you an overview of both of the books, what I liked especially about them, probably some little nitpicking issues, and finally I'm going to try and help you decide, is one of these books right for you, or maybe both? One of the first things that caught my eye about these two books, and this is the first one I read, Lies I Taught in Medical School by Dr. Robert Lufkin, is the similarity in covers. The colors, the fonts, they look a lot alike. Even here, the ends. See those? I'm going to start with Lies I Taught in Medical School by Dr. Robert Lufkin. This book has 12 chapters, and I like the chapter length. They're all kind of right in that 20-page or less range, which is really kind of where I like to be. I'll compare that to Dr. Berry's book in a second. I feel that this book goes deeper, yet not as wide, versus Lies My Doctor Told Me. And I found myself, as I was reading it, kind of sensing that he was eventually going to get to keto, which really he does. I think this is a great book to read if you want to be able to have a debate with someone on keto versus the standard American diet in terms of science and in terms of studies. This is a great sort of debate prep sort of book. There are so many references that he makes in here. There's a lot of, the little numbers, the superscripts or subscripts for notes. Let me see how many in total. 472 different references he makes in this book. And one of the things that I really, really loved about it is how meticulously he picks apart flaws in various studies, saying that fat is bad or calories in, calories out is the way to go. One of the things that I would love to see if Dr. Lufkin does a follow-up to this book is a book purely on debunking bad studies, bad science that then has basically become mainstream. The lie that has been repeated so often that it becomes truth and everybody just regurgitates it. Like, eat less, exercise more, fat'll make you fat. He does a pretty good job disassembling Ansel Keys' arguments, his studies on heart disease and cholesterol. What I didn't like about this book, first off, it's all black and white. Lots of graphs, lots of charts, but because they are in black and white and they're relatively small, I found myself eventually just skipping over them. They were just sort of filler to me. The other thing is, once you get towards the end of the book, it almost takes on sort of a Dave Asprey sort of a vibe. It starts being a lot of, here are all the products you should buy in order to live this healthy lifestyle that I'm talking about in the book. Another thing that has soured me just a little bit on Dr. Lufkin, and this has nothing to do with the book, but Dr. Lufkin posts an awful lot out on LinkedIn. And I feel that a lot of his posts are almost, I don't know what I would call it, proactive trolling. He puts out some very short but provocative statements and infographics and memes and things like that. And then you get all of the retaliatory comments from other people that believe in the lies that were taught in medical school, or lies their doctor told them. And then he doesn't engage in a debate with any of these people. It almost just feels like he's floating it out there. I don't know, but I've mentioned my opinion on LinkedIn and how that has basically turned over the last 20 years from something that was a professional networking social site to just toxicity now. And where people used to be professional, now it is as bad as any social media platform. I feel that there is probably a better platform for Dr. Lufkin to be posting these things in other than LinkedIn. As soon as I finished Dr. Lufkin's book, I started Lies My Doctor Told Me by Dr. Ken Berry. And I like Dr. Berry. After reading this book, I really, really like Dr. Berry. So, as I said, Lies I Taught in Medical School is more deep, but not nearly as wide. This is quite a bit wider and a little shallower in depth, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. Additionally, Dr. Berry doesn't get into going through all the studies and references and notes and things like that Lufkin does. Instead, his approach is more of a down-to-earth, common sense sort of approach. For example, one of the lies is that testosterone can lead to prostate cancer. Now, if this were true, he says, just sort of common sense, what age group has the most testosterone in their system? Well, that would be men probably from about age 14 to 24, somewhere in there. And if having a ton of testosterone in your system is going to lead to prostate cancer, we should see all of the cases of prostate cancer in that age group. So I really appreciate Dr. Berry's approach in terms of just common sense to kind of shut down some of these arguments. And I think it's a great book if you're going to find yourself having conversations with other lay people about the benefits of a ketogenic lifestyle. The chapters in this book are a lot shorter. We're talking like 5, 7, 10 pages, and it is full color, lots of little graphics and things like that kind of, I don't know, it makes it flow better to me. Furthermore, anybody that's followed Dr. Berry for a while knows that he's got a subtle yet sly sense of humor, and sometimes there's a hint of sarcasm to it. All of that shows up in this book, and I really, really enjoyed that. There were no laugh out loud moments, but there were a lot of smiles to be had. Furthermore, as someone who's written some software manuals and standard work instructions, I really like the consistency of the format of each chapter. Every chapter is laid out exactly the same. Each chapter starts with a quote that's generally pretty relevant to whatever's in the chapter itself, and then you have the lie, why you should care, the support for the lie, the common sense, I talked about that earlier, the research, either for or against the lie, and if for the lie, he then goes in and sort of picks apart what the problems are with the study, not quite to the same depth that Lufkin does in his book. Then the take-home, what you should take away from this chapter, do as I do, which is how he implements it in his daily life, and finally, homework, which doesn't have to be homework. You don't have to do the homework, but it's additional books or articles or vlogs or blogs that you can read and get further information if you're interested. Now, if I had one nitpick on this book, it would be that the chapter titles are sometimes phrased as a question, sometimes they're phrased as a statement, sometimes they're phrased as the lie. So what happened is I found myself going into each chapter not knowing exactly what the lie was until I got a little bit into it. I think had there been more consistency in the chapter namings, that would have been cool, but that's a pretty subtle nitpick. I'll also say that there are some of the chapters in here that I found myself not entirely in agreement with. But there's a good chance that the reason I wasn't agreeing is just because the lie has been instilled into me so deeply through so much repetition over so many years. But as I read it and I found myself maybe not in full agreement with him, I remembered one of the things that Dr. Berry said. This was, I believe, on an interview with Dr. Eric Westman, another one of my favorite keto guys. And Dr. Berry said, "This is what I think I believe currently." So he's very open to the fact that this is the best information that he has right now. And I think all of us try and operate on the best information that we have right now. But the willingness to accept that we may be wrong, Dr. Berry's willingness to accept that at some point in the future, he may know more, he may change his opinion on certain things, I think makes this feel I think this makes this book feel less confrontational. The other thing, okay, I guess I'm coming up with more nitpicks, and this goes pretty much with any book written by a doctor talking about other doctors, saying, if you go to your doctor, present this evidence to them, give them a copy of this book, print out this article for them, and if they don't agree, if they're not on board, go find yourself a new doctor. I don't know that it's that easy to go and find yourself a new doctor. It's hard enough for me to get in to see a doctor without shopping for doctors. So like I said at the outset, I really enjoyed both these books. I'm glad I read them both. If there were a favorite, if you were forcing me to pick my favorite, I think I'm going to go with Dr. Berry's book. I think a lot of it depends on where you are and how you like to learn. If you like to learn in a very scientific way with a lot of data, then this is the book, Dr. Lufkin's book. If you prefer to learn from sort of a more common sense sort of approach, Dr. Berry's book. Now, if you've read either of these books and have opinions on them, I would love to hear what you think. Please let me know down in the comments below. Also, if there's any questions that you have specifically about either book, you can ask those down in the comments, and either I or someone else hopefully will have an answer for you. I will include links to both of these books out on Amazon down in the description below, so if you're interested, you can get yourself a copy. In terms of upcoming books that I'm going to try out, I've had a number of recommendations to check out Dr. Bickman's Why We Get Sick. So that is on my Amazon wish list. I will get to that soon, and when I do, I'll let you know my feelings on that book as well. But that is going to be it for this single topic video podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. I enjoy spending a little bit of time with you. I enjoy reading your comments. So thanks for tuning in, thanks for listening, and thanks for watching.